Some advice that I've heard given to newer disc golfers more times than I can count is to throw slower discs, like putters and mid-ranges, because when you're new, putters and mid-ranges fly just as far as your drivers will. And if the beginning of this video sounds familiar, that's because it is. About a month ago, we posted a video called Which Speed Flies the Farthest, where we took 13 discs from Discraft, speed 1 to 13, and gave them to 4 different players of different skill levels and with very different arm speeds to try and find out if there's any truth to the idea that slower discs fly farther for slower arms. And in that video, our data proved that to be false. Faster, more aerodynamic discs like fairways and distance drivers almost always flew farther. So why are we back here talking about it again? Well, to put it simply, you all had some excellent feedback, and we listened to feedback. You see, last time we threw stable to understable discs from Discraft, and you all said we should do this test again with overstable discs, and I couldn't agree more. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and this is Flight Numbers Don't Matter, where we conduct large-scale tests and comparisons to try and learn anything we can about flight numbers, stability, and much more. Now, the reason you all suggested using overstable discs is that we were likely to see a bigger change in distance from player to player. Our MPO thrower, Caleb, throws over 60 miles an hour, and he should easily be able to get some overstable discs to turn over, while the rest of us probably won't. So this is probably our best chance to really see if slower discs can fly farther. In addition to changing stability, we're also mixing things up and changing brands today and moving to an all Innova made lineup. Because Innova doesn't really have any overstable-ish 1-speed discs, the closest we could come up with is this R-Blend Glyph from Infinite Discs. R-Blend is similar to Innova's R-Pro plastic, and the Glyph feels like a polecat with a thumb track. Quite unusual. Moving up in speed from there, we'll be throwing the 2-speed Champion Rhino, a 3-speed Infinite Discs Alpaca, and the Alpaca was honestly the closest thing I could get to an overstable 3-speed from Innova or Infinite. From here on out though, we do definitely have some moderately overstable discs right the way through, including the flat top overstable Champion Toro, a Halo Star Rock 3 for our 5-speed, a 6-speed Innova Gazelle in Protoglow Metal Flake Champion plastic, a Champion T-Bird and T-Bird 3 for our 7 and 8-speed slots. I even snagged this sweet old Big Germ Thunderbird from a few years ago for our 9-speed. At 10, we switch back to Infinite Discs to grab the Roman, which is very similar to the old Discmania PD that Innova made. And then we have a few Innova classics, an 11-speed Wraith, 12-speed Destroyer, and 13-speed Boss. And finally, closing out our lineup is this Domi Star Colossus at speed 14. And just like before, we have 4 different players testing these for us. Team Six Sided Discs Caleb Thomas is throwing for MPO today. His backhand can reach 65 miles an hour or more. I'll be throwing today for the MA2 level, and since I'm basically not throwing backhands anymore, more on that in an upcoming video, I will be throwing all of these on forehand. Our friend Josh is throwing for us again at the MA4 or casual level today, and my wife Emily is throwing for FA4 or casual. Once again, neither of them have ever played in a tournament, so the division is more indicative of what they would play if they did. Just like last time, we'll be throwing these discs multiple times in an open field, and the goal is distance, not accuracy. So once each player has registered what they feel is the maximum distance they can get with each disc, we'll enter those into our graph, which may look something like this. And once again, we'll be looking to see if we can find any trends in the data from player to player or disc to disc, and then we'll also be able to compare this video's data with our last video as well. Let's kick things off at the FA4 level with my wife, Emily. She has a natural high anhyzer release, so these overstable discs may have an opportunity to flex out, or they may sky upwards and backwards. The Glyph is a tricky disc to get used to, and unsurprisingly, for as blunt-nosed as it is, Emily only got about 135 feet from it. But she got some decent distance with the Rhino at 160 feet, and the Alpaca and Toro were the first discs to really show us the flights we're expecting for lower arm speeds with these types of discs, starting them out on some anhyzer before they fight out and fade. This is really the only way Emily was going to get any distance from these discs. She had another solid throw with the Rock 3 at 185 feet, but past that, it was difficult to add much distance until she got just the perfect angle with the Halo Star Wraith. The Wraith pushed out to 225 feet, but this is essentially where Emily hit her distance ceiling, because the Destroyer, and particularly the Boss and Colossus, were just way too overstable to get any kind of distance. We'll compare Emily's overstable to understable data a little bit later, but first, let's take a look at Josh's numbers. Josh kicked things off with 212 feet on the Glyph, 229 on the Rhino, and 230 on the Alpaca. The Toro, though, is quite a bit more overstable and has a lot less glide than the first 3 discs, so unsurprisingly, the distance drops off there to 222. Josh got a great rip on the Rock 3 at 250 feet, and even better on the Gazelle at 290. And his distance continued to steadily increase, 313 with the Thunderbird, 326 with the Colossus, and finally his best throw of them all, 330 feet with the Destroyer. Josh's final chart here shows a sharply increasing distance from lower to higher speed discs. Definitive results on their own, but we still have 2 throwers to go. But before we get there, a quick word from today's sponsor, our YouTube members. That's right, you can join our channel as a member for just $1 a month and get some great benefits like early access to videos, priority reply to comments, and more. And if you join at either of the top 3 tiers, you get discounts on every order from our website, sixsidediscs.com, where you can shop over 20 brands and accessories of all your favorites in the world of disc golf, with pictures of every disc and free shipping over $50. So please consider supporting the content we create by clicking the join button below this video or making your next disc purchase from sixsidediscs.com. Thank you for your support. Now though, it's my turn to get my hands on these discs and let it rip. Now, if you've followed our channel at all, you may know that I've been having a few on and off again injuries with my elbow last year and most recently with my back. Luckily though, my forehand still works quite well, because once we get past these discs that are pretty hard to throw on forehand, like the Glyph at 218, the Rhino at 187, or the Alpaca at 190, the only way to go was up. I got the Toro out to 247, which is probably the maximum I could get with an approach disc like that. And then I steadily increased distance with each of the next few discs, like 273 feet for the Rock 3, 306 feet for the Gazelle, 324 for the T-Bird, and 345 for the T-Bird 3. And then my third best distance with the Thunderbird at 359. However, there were definitely some struggles with some of the distance drivers. The 10-speed Roman was a little bit tricky for me. The Boss was way too overstable. And the Colossus was kind of all over the place. So none of those got big numbers. But the Destroyer, at 371 feet, was my second farthest throw, before I clocked my best of the bunch with the Halo Star Wraith at 378 feet. And to be honest, I didn't know I could throw that far. So that's cool. What my chart shows, though, is a very steep increase in distance as the speed of the disc goes up. And at least for me personally, on forehand, slower discs are really difficult to get a clean release with. And that's why we see such a huge steep increase in my distance numbers specifically. Let's move on though and head to the biggest arm around here, Team Six-Sided Discs, Caleb Thomas. Now, first and foremost, because we have 4 different throwers here, we had to throw on different days. Emily and Josh threw on the same day, while Caleb and I threw on a separate day, which for the purposes of today's data is relevant because while I had a very helping wind on my throws, Caleb did not, which is going to make his distances seem a little shorter than expected. At any rate, let's watch Caleb let a rip on these discs. Across the first 5 discs, Caleb had a fairly consistent and moderate increase in distance. But as soon as we hit the fairway drivers, the numbers shoot up. He crushed the Gazelle out to 393 feet, and the Champion T-Bird out to 381. Caleb had mixed success with the T-Bird 3, Thunderbird, Roman, and Wraith because they all failed to deliver anything much farther. But because Caleb's got that little extra power and spin, he was able to get big distance from the Destroyer, his second best at 400 feet. And wouldn't you know it, the fastest disc of the bunch, the Colossus, was his best distance at 403 feet. Now, Caleb's results were pretty much in line with the rest of us. We see, again, a steady increase in distance all the way up. And this is effectively what we saw in our previous test with Discraft discs. I want to take a moment to look at each player's datasets side by side, comparing these stable to understable discs to overstable discs, just in terms of distance. Here's a quick side by side of Emily's numbers, and surprisingly, her farthest throw with an overstable disc was better than her farthest with a stable to understable disc. Josh also had better distance with overstable discs than with understable or stable discs, which is, again, surprising. My data shows just how touchy the faster understable discs were compared to more overstable discs. And again, my distance improved with the overstable discs by quite a bit. Caleb's data, however, isn't really worth comparing, because the left to right crosswind we had while he was throwing these overstable discs was pushing his shots down as soon as they started to fade. Now, in our previous test, there was a moderate increase in distance as the speed of the disc increased. But I was really surprised to see that not only continue today with overstable discs, but seemingly increase even more, especially for myself. And I think it definitively disproves the idea that putters and mid-ranges will fly farther for anyone, as far as I'm concerned. My theory on why that might be happening is that stable to understable discs effectively reach this sort of breaking point, a point of no return, where if you throw them any harder, faster, or with more spin, they are just going to turn and burn. But with overstable discs, you can essentially throw them as hard and fast as you want, unless you're one of a few very elite throwers in the world. And what that means is that for Caleb and I, we could just rip on these discs as hard as possible, and then let their stability figure out the rest. The slower discs were, of course, still limited by their aerodynamic properties. Fairway drivers and distance drivers will always fly faster, have less wind resistance, and should fly farther. So, does speed equal distance? Yes. Does speed also equal less accuracy? Also yes. There are, of course, drawbacks to throwing faster discs, especially when you're new. But if we're purely talking about distance, there's a reason they call them distance drivers in the first place. What overstable disc flies the farthest for you? Leave a comment down below. And also comment below what large-scale tests and comparisons you'd like to see in the future on Flight Numbers Don't Matter. For Six-Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. And gave them to 4 different players of very different skill levels and power levels. Keep going.
Nah, I'll plant sooner. Saving his colon, Emily.
And gave them to 4 different players of different skill and power levels. Okay.
Pardon me.
Oops.
Oops.
Yeah, if you're gonna razz Caleb, you gotta do it for your
I'll razz myself.
You might have just razzed your pants.
And gave them to 4 different players of different skill and...
Hi, my name is Josh, and I'm an amateur disc golfer. What you see me wearing here is the Six-Sided Discs hoodie that comes in black. What I want to say about this hoodie is that it's added at least 50 feet of distance to my throw overall, as you're going to see in a video that will be released at some point, whether it is in the future or the past. I also just want to say that this disc has increased my swag level at least 3 times. As you can see, the six-sided disc's word logo is here on my left sleeve. As a left-handed thrower, I can say that this has improved my velocity and aerodynamic fluidness through the air as I pull through to throw the disc. So if you haven't gone to sixsideddiscs.com, that is sixsideddiscs.com and picked up your black six-sided disc hoodie, what the heck are you waiting for? Use code JOSH25.
These claims cannot be verified.
Use code JOSH25 to get a second hoodie at checkout for the same price as the first. It's a deal that you can't match anywhere else except for sixsideddiscs.com.
Offer valid through May 2024.
And gave them to 4 different players of different skill levels and with very different arm speeds to try and find out if there's any truth to. Ugh. And at least for me personally, on forehand, a lot of these slow.
More bloops. More bloops.
Personnel force.
Oh wait, hold on. I got something fun.
I'm gonna absolutely unleash. You ready?
Go, do it.
60 Fresnel force. Oh, I gotta go get that.
If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or becoming a member. Your support makes this content possible.